Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdist Dave, and today I'm joined by Charlie from Encounter Roleplay. You're the director over there, which seems to me, from the outside looking in, like a huge job.
It is. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of is a huge job.
Yeah,
Uh
you guys are creating and pumping out tons and tons of RPG content, and have been doing it for a long time.
yeah.
Will has kind of handed the reins over to you. There's some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I got handed the reins of a runaway wagon. It was already like on the downhill slide, going 90 through the middle of nowhere in the mud and the rain and the pouring, and I got the reins and I was like, I can do this, please. But no, it's been a really cool journey. Will started the company 5 years ago, I think, and as of September last year, I hopped into the driver's seat. I've
Yeah.
been clinging on for dear life as the Chaos Chorus lead me down a merry path of TTRPG.
Well, I imagine he would not have handed over his baby to you if he did not have confidence in your ability to steer the helm.
I definitely felt for the first time in my life like someone trusts me. Um,
What will I do with that trust?
I went. I sometimes when I'm teching on shows, I describe myself as a little kobold. Don't worry, kobold number six will fix it. And I felt for the first time like maybe I'll grow into a full dragon. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is how I do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so we were talking a little bit about the shows and stuff. How many shows does Encounter Roleplay have going on right now?
Right now we have one, two, three, four, five, six, 8 shows a week, Monday to Friday.
And you're on a bunch of those.
Yeah, I'm on 4 of them, which sounds really greedy. It sounds like I've just cast myself in nearly every show.
Well, you're the boss now, so I guess you can.
Yeah, it is a pack that I get to choose what I play in and when I play it. No, so I GM on a Monday. I run Song of Ice and Fire RPG or Sword Chronicle if people are familiar with the Green Ronin new release. That's been a lot of fun, and the cool thing about that campaign is it's actually a sister campaign to another channel's Game of Thrones campaign. So we share the same universe between us during the week, and I play on the sister campaign as a player. So we kind of feed each other. So that goes on a Monday, and then on Tuesdays I play in what we call Tentacle Tuesdays because Call of Cthulhu is a massive game for Encounter Roleplay. It's kind of what Encounter Roleplay became known for. It was Will's beloved system. I love it, and we play all kinds of different Call of Cthulhu games. This is kind of Call of Cthulhu in the darker ages by way of Blackadder and Monty Python. It's a very funny Call of Cthulhu game, and we tried to make this one serious because we're on season 2 of it. We tried to make this season more serious, and it's ended up more funny because we cannot help ourselves. We have some incredibly talented comedians on the show, and it's a self-feeding beast. Oh, punching my mic. I'm a professional. And yeah, so I do that, and then Wednesdays I play an occult game, and on Fridays I get to play in some Urban Shadows. So I get a good dose of lots of different kinds of RPGs in a week.
Do you have a favorite game?
Oh, how could you ask me that?
I know
Oh,
it's a cruel
choose between the
question.
babies. I do really love the Game of Thrones game. It's cool because obviously I'm involved in 2 different campaigns that shape each other. We've actually had a third campaign. We're going to start a fourth one, and they all kind of feed into each other. The thing I love about it is it's the fantasy I like, where there is a touch of magic in the world, but it's all like signs and symbols. And is it magic, or is it just that they can't explain how this happened? And then it's got a lot of politics to it, and it's got the social intrigue system, which I find really interesting, and I think helps a lot of players who aren't confident role players get things out of social encounters, which you don't get fulfilled as well in D&D, in my opinion. I'm gonna suffix it with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean the mechanics don't support it
No.
that well. So I'm not really familiar with the GOT system. I know a lot of the Green Ronin games now run off of age. Is that another age?
I honestly I'm not sure. It's a D6 dice pool system. I've not played a lot of Green Ronin systems.
Okay.
This is the only one that I've really played, so I'm not sure what their other systems are shaped up like. But essentially, you have a number of d6s that you roll, and you keep a number of them, very similar in a way to Shadowrun, but you're adding a cumulative total rather than a number of successes.
Oh, okay, that's definitely different. Yeah, because the age system is a 3 die 6 with the stunt die, which is also a little. It can be a little bit over the top. So I don't know how well that would work for a like a GOT style game, which seems is a bit more grounded. So it's like in the age system, every time you roll doubles, you then get these like stunt points that you can spend,
Right.
and then
Kind
like
of like Modiphius's 2d20 system where you get momentum and you get the extra.
so yeah, so crazy things can start happening, and if you do things that like keep having you roll dice, then you could potentially keep getting stunt points, and it kind of just like snowballs.
I have to say, exploding dice is one of my favorite mechanics. When I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the second edition, they had I forget, it was one of the gods. I think it was Ulfric's Fury. Ulfric's Fury. It's been like 2 years since I played it. Unfortunately, my brain for names is very bad, which is a problem when you live in a world of handles. You know, role play names and real people names. I call people. I'm that everyone's grandmother. I just run through all of their names until I hit the right one. But I think it was Ulric's Fury. So essentially, if you rolled a 10 on the dice, it exploded, and you got to roll again.
Yeah.
And the levity and the joy of seeing that 10 come up and knowing you got to grab that dice and roll it again is just one of the best feelings, in my opinion. I love exploding dice.
Yeah, the first time we experienced that was with the Open Legend system, and yeah, like we had done a test play, and it just so happened that the creator lived like one state over from us. It was fairly close, and came and ran a game for us, and we, like my brother, exploded the D20 like 3 times. For at the time it was the highest one, but someone eventually passed it. It was like a 72, and it was for like almost like a meaningless check, so it was great.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
But no, yeah, like because I mean, part of the RPGs can be definitely the excitement of the rolling the dice, and when you get to reach back down and roll them again because you rolled that special number or whatever, is adds to the excitement at the table, and then I feel like everyone kind of gets into that. So with I kind of ask everyone this question, but I don't feel like it's going to affect encounter roleplay nearly as much because you guys are playing online all the time anyway. With the pandemic, the apocalypse, are you guys gaming the same more or less?
That's a really interesting question. We've seen a curve to it at the start of the apocalypse that we're going through right now. People were very unsure about how life was going to go, which made committing to playing campaigns very difficult for a lot of people. If you don't know when you're going to have to go to work, if you don't know where you're going to be every week, it's very hard to commit to a game. And because people care about these things that they're agreeing to, they don't want to commit to something and flake on it. They'll have that guilt inside of them that they don't necessarily need because it's not their fault that this is happening. So what we did to kind of counteract that was we shortened our seasons this year to 6 or 8 weeks, which made it a little bit easier. And then we found as things have kind of become a new normal, people have been able to recommit. And that's watching as well as playing, I think. When you're asking someone to consume 3-hour games every week, it's a big dedication. Where they used to be able to do it, on the drive to work, at their desk while they were doing other things, when that's taken away and they're finding new routines, it's a big thing to be, oh yeah, I've got to find 3 hours to watch Call of Cthulhu this week. But it's definitely finding, a new rhythm. And we've seen a lot of people come over to begin playing online, looking for resources on how do I play Call of Cthulhu? I've just discovered this thing. What is this? How do I do it? It sounds fun.
Yeah, that part kind of excites me a lot. Is like so many people are playing online now because they have no choice, right? And I feel like as humans, our breaking our own inertia sometimes is like the hardest thing. So now, now we're gonna have all these people that have never played online playing online, and once everything goes back to normal, people that really struggle to find games or find a home game can now like reach all the way around the world because maybe they have a weird schedule or something, and they can, and now they'll be able to, stay in the hobby, stay connected. So hopefully that'll be like one of the silver linings that comes from all this.
I definitely think so. And I think people are discovering that, hey, they could have done this all along as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had no idea. And they're coming online, they're joining communities like the Roll20 community. They're seeing on YouTube all of these channels uploading the games. And they're like, hey, people are doing this. Did you know people were doing this? Why
Yeah.
did Jeff at the bookstore not tell us people were doing this? We could have been doing this.
And sometimes too, people just have these preconceived notions like it somehow it won't be as good, playing online as playing in person, and and they're just different experiences. It would
They
have their
definitely are different experiences. The pacing is different, the rhythm's a little bit different. You get more done playing online because people aren't getting up every 3 seconds or having quiet conversations between them. You do lose some of the experience of being able to just lean over and whisper to your friend. You have to just type it instead or something. But I think it works. I think crunchier systems don't do as well streamed, but I think online play, which is another kind of side thing, they work fine. Streamed, my rule for a stream game is if the role is not crucial, don't make them make it, because a role should be a special moment on a stream. And also, the more roles that happen, the longer it takes to resolve all of that. And that slows down the role play, which is our focus, I suppose, on encounter role play. We really want to see the players playing with each other and talking between each other, not discussing the rules. We're not running demo games as such. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the way we're playing it, I suppose.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, that's just good advice in general. If the role doesn't matter, don't make it. Like it's a waste of everyone's time. Because if the person running the game already has a preconceived notion of what's going to happen when you roll that die, once the players start figuring that out, it kind of like breaks the game for them, and
Mm-hmm.
you lose a little bit of their trust as the GM. So we always advise people if there's nothing riding on the outcome of that die roll, don't even bother with it. Also, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I just put question in front of it. It makes it easier for us to pick them out.
So Valerook UK 1911 comments that the one issue that consistently pops up for them is that people end up talking simultaneously because it's difficult to read visual cues when someone's about to speak. This is definitely true because on a lot of systems there's going to be a lag. And with online play, we were discussing this before we came online, two screens is really nice because you have a lot of different things to look at and they're all in one place because they all have to be on screen. So unlike a table where you can have your book in front of you, your friends to your left, your right, and across wherever you need them, everyone's in this one tiny box and you're trying to cram it in, and it does make it easy to miss cues. I find streaming groups do find their rhythms. You get kind of used to it and you just learn to take the pause and glance, and generally you learn to get into the rhythm. It does start out as a lot of crosstalk and occasionally it gets very overwhelming, but it's like any group. When you come together for the first time, you're not going to know each other's rhythm. You're not going to know this person's going to get really excited about this thing and I'm not going to get to talk for half an hour until you go through that experience.
No, that's a very good point. And like you said, the more you game with this particular group, you'll figure each other out and it gets easier. I mean, me and Ted, recently went to filming online and doing it virtually as opposed to in person. And because we have, been working together for so long, each time we do it, it gets a little bit easier to read each other's cues. And, like you said, like having more screens does make it a lot easier. I know that's not a luxury that everyone has available to them. And also too, like, it's just something you're going to deal with. You're going to be like, oh, you're going to just have to repeat stuff and, it just becomes part of the game. Because what happens is like we play these games and they're turn based. Well, when you go to gaming online, I feel like life is now turn based, because of the way Skype, Zoom, whatever you're using works.
Definitely a little bit. I think that's pretty fair. I do think it's just, it's just practice and getting used to it. And in the moment as well, especially if it's a streamed game, I do want to differentiate between just online gaming and stream games because they are different experiences. But especially if it's a stream game and people are watching, it became, or it adds to the situation of anxiety and excitement because there's other people watching and you're multitasking all the more because you're reading what people in chat are saying, and it gets to be a lot very quickly, and then it just, I think that you hit a point when you're doing it where it suddenly is no longer as stressful as you thought. There will still be the pre-show nerves. I think that's very normal. But once you're in it, you get into it, and it becomes normal and part of your creation. And I think the secret for me would be when you do your session 0, and everyone should do a session 0, don't care, no excuse, do one. Set your expectations, and also just set up the rules for how do we handle this when this happens. When 2 people speak, the GM says this person, and then you just repeat, and you don't have a huge apology that takes up time. Or if someone forgets to unmute, you set up a signal, and then, the vocal cue, and then get them to repeat, and you move on. And, just adding in a little, when this goes wrong, what do we do statement helps a lot. And it's just part of the facilitation of healthy play.
Yeah, and also like you said, like there's a difference between online play and streaming. And let's face it, like the streaming is a very small portion of all the online play that's going on.
Definitely.
So when it's just you chilling with your buddies, rolling some funny shaped dice, it doesn't matter. Like, so, you're going to take up time in the beginning. You'll figure this stuff out. And then before you know it, you'll realize, oh, you know what? We get way more gaming in 2 hours than we do in like 3 or 4 at the table.
Yeah.
Those little boxes is why they can also be a little bit of a little confusing, harder to read cues and stuff, but they also help us to like zoom and focus in on the game. It's like having a target.
Definitely. I 100% agree with that.
So do you prefer playing in games or running them?
Playing. I'm one of these people, I will do both.
No hesitation whatsoever.
No. I find I just don't enjoy GMing as much because I don't feel I'm doing as good of a job. But that said, I love watching players play together. So if there's a group of people that want to play and none of them want to GM, I'll do it. Let's just play.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in the myth of the always GM. I think it's very healthy for GMs to step out of their box and go and sit and play. They will bring bad habits. They might not enjoy it as much, but every now and again, it's very good for them to go and be a player. And a lot of the groups that we play with on the counter are made up of all GMs. Everyone in the group is a GM, but then now everyone's a player. And I think swapping the roles is important. I don't think making someone do something they don't want to do is a good thing. They don't want to be a player, you can't make them. If they don't want to be a GM, definitely don't make them. But I think if it's just for you and you get to play something you're excited about, just swap seats occasionally. If someone's feeling sick and everyone in the group's a GM, go, hey, Susie, can you GM this week?
Yeah.
And just hand them your notes and continue, because you're sharing. And I don't think it's breaking anything magical by going, here's my 3 bullet points for today. Let's play the game, because the players should know the game as well as you do. That's my opinion. The players should know this world nearly as well as you do. Okay, you're going to have some secrets. You're going to know a bit of politics that's going on here. You're going to know where the dragon is hiding. But those are just little things, and there's no harm in handing over for a side session. They know this is a forest. People know what lives in forests. They can grab some goblins or whatever you're playing. They could add a cosmic horror in a shack in the woods, and you go and do a slight side tangent in your Call of Cthulhu for that week. And it means you can keep playing and having fun with each other if someone's not feeling great, and but not so unwell that they want to give up playing for the whole week.
Unfortunately, I have seen tables where like if the person that GMs isn't there to GM, they just won't play.
It's a fear block,
yeah.
And I get it. I've seen it. I've seen people go, oh, they're not here, can't do it. And it's like it's like a board game. If Mary, who knows how to play Monopoly, is the only person who can facilitate playing Monopoly for you, grab the rule book, Karen. Take a glance, roll the dice, and play your game. I understand that anxiety, and I wouldn't advocate for it if it's a ton of relatively new players on a experienced streaming channel. That's harsh. That's a deep end drop. But if it's just your friends, you can pass the rule book around. You can figure it out as you go, and you still get to hang out and have fun together, which should be the core of the activity, right? You're not here making blockbusters, you're having fun with each other. And
That's a great point.
I think if you can let go of some of the fear, and instead of seeing it as a negative challenge of now everyone's going to be looking at me, seeing it as now I get to play and, you know, we can all still hang out, then I, you know, turn the fear into a positive challenge. And if it's not the best game in the world, it's 1 week, you
I
know.
I had always GM'd because it was that situations like I would rather GM and play than not play at all. But then this part is kind of terrible. But it was the '80s and we were terrible. I just bullied other people into the table into running and be like, "Hey, you know what, Ted? This seat right here would probably be a great seat for you. And here, have this nice screen in front of you.
Look, you've got a castle now.
Yeah, you're up. You're up, kid." So Valorok, is there anything you've noticed that you enjoy more with playing online than you did playing in person?
So the only experience I'd had of playing in person was playing with my sister. I never played D&D as a big social activity with a group of friends or any role play game, in fact. The only person I ever played with was my sister. And so we'd kind of play between us the duet versions of the games. We'd get like starter kits or we'd get the big box board games and we'd kind of play those like RPGs because we get way too into things. So I'd never had the experience of a table until I went to meetups and conventions. I got to go to PAX U, for example. And at PAX U, we played a pickup game of Song of Ice and Fire because we are always on that stuff. And it's, you know, it's a game that we know relatively well. And what we do is just invite people to sit down and I'd just be like, I will tell you what you're going to roll. Just role play. You tell me, right, you're noble. All right, I know roughly what stats you would have. I'll tell you what to roll. You just describe it for me. And so that's how we play that. And I love that experience. And I've really enjoyed getting to sit at a table, nice and comfortable, not have lights in my face, just, you know, side chats and things. That's been a really fun experience. But because all of my experience is playing online and specifically mostly streamed, I only played like 2 or 3 games before I started streaming. Like this is my normal. So it's hard for me to know. I like both experiences, but I get different things from both experiences.
That's a fair answer. Now, as someone who started playing before the internet was a thing, you know, they're both really great for different reasons. I mean, online pants are optional. You're in the comfort of your home. You don't have to commute. There's so many great things, you know, about doing it. You just jump right in. You know, where if we game in person, it's like, you know, drive 30 minutes to, you know, where we game at. Then there's going to be a lot of talking beforehand. Then we're going to game. And it's like a whole thing. Like it's a whole day. You know, it takes up about 7 hours, which of that 7 hours, you probably only play 4 anyway. But it's a different kind of experience. And even like, that's not bad. It's just more of a social
Yeah, it's
gathering.
just a different experience. And you know, I think again it circles back to knowing what you want out of what you're doing with this activity. And I think people need to ask themselves that more often. And when you're choosing what game to play, ask yourself that. As Star Stuff 84 just pointed out in chat, there are a lot of zero prep and GM-less games now available. We're in this heyday of development in gaming. There are a lot of different systems coming out, and the accessibility to them is improving as we get cheaper PDFs. We get free PDFs in some cases. And there's so many resources online to teach you about these things that there are many games you could pick up and you read one paragraph and you're good to start playing. It takes a little bit of confidence, but I think once you break through that anxiety and you start doing it and you figure out it's not the end of the world if you mispronounce a name or, you know, you get a rule slightly wrong in your first playthrough, then you're free and you're liberated from that. And you can, you know, someone's sick, you play a GM-less game and suddenly, you know, the world is not there if your GM is not available.
You know,
So
also with the idea of GM-less games, like that might be a great way to get your other players into running games as well. If you kind of get them used to no GM, you know, and then it's like anybody can do it now. So TV Grant wants to know, online gaming question, Charlie, do you prefer Zoom or other video chat windows or a full-on VTT?
Okay, so when I started playing online, we started out on Roll20, but this was in the old days before they even had character sheets and you had to kind of code all your macros yourself. So seeing the evolution of these VTTs into having the cameras built in, sound built in, dice rollers and everything, that has been really cool. But I haven't used them a whole bunch because I'm so used to having a separate production system going on because of streaming. I like the idea of, a one-stop shop where you only have to have one thing on screen and you can play your game. That seems ideal to me for just hanging out and doing your thing. So I love the concept of that. I haven't played with it a lot though.
I,
But also I've played an amazing game that was just on Discord and it was voice only. There were no resources. We had, I think, a PDF each that we used for reference. We just sat back. You could hear dice rolling. You couldn't see anyone. So that's kind of strange for me. I'm used to seeing faces, but we just found a rhythm and we told an amazing story and it was so relaxed for me. I didn't have to put a wig on. I didn't have to do anything. I just turned up, sat down and played the game. And it was so strange. I could just walk from, one room to another, sat down, turned on my voice chat, and away we went. It
I,
was amazing.
I would also say like gaming online can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Just kind of like you just said, is just voice over Discord or just Zoom, Skype, whatever you like to use. Discord has video as well, Theater of the Mind. Or if you want to do, Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or Astral, one of the other ones, and just like all the bells and whistles and sound effects and Sirenscape, you can do all that as well. It's whatever your comfort zone is.
You can play TTRPG in a car now with two people. Please don't try this with one because you can roll dice on Google. You just type in what you want on Google and Google will roll it. You don't need an app or anything. So you could be playing as you drive along. And as Brian Smith mentions, there are wonderful solo games now. And I'm a big enjoyer of solo games. I like journaling games in particular. Like epistolatory based games. I enjoy that scratches a different itch for me. But so this is the thing is I think we come from a cultural place where we expect TTRPG to just be one thing. And it's been locked that way for a long time. But the reality is it's so much more. If you look at a shelf of board games, those board games are not just one thing. So when people look at a shelf of TTRPG books and they have that expectation of they're all just Dungeons and Dragons, right? You're all just wizards and you're all just throwing dice around and it's silly. It's very silly. It's not. That's just not the reality. And I love that people are becoming more and more aware of this, that there are options and whatever you want to do, you can find it. And if you can't find it, there are lots of tools out there to make it, which is really fun, incidentally.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we got started. And a lot of people they come to the hobby and they start playing D&D just because that's what they've heard of or what they know, and then they want to try and figure out how to play every other genre or IP out there with D&D. And we always get this question on our channel because we do talk about D&D a lot. How do I do X with D&D? And I'm just like, why would you? It's a great system for D&D, but that game even exists. Why don't you just play that game? I'm a big fan of like branching out, and if I'm not playing fantasy, I don't want to play D&D. I want to play some other game.
I totally understand the anxiety of I've put so much time into learning D&D, I don't want to learn something else, and the exhaustion of researching and but what if the book weighs 7 pounds? Then I've got to go through a 7-pound book, right? But I think it's partially just that. It's partially just an anxiety. It's okay to just love D&D and that just be your jam. Like, I'm not saying that's not okay, but I think if you're looking for something else and you admit to yourself you're looking for something else, once you can get past the anxiety of I've got to learn more rules, you're free. You're free. There is a wide world of everything out there for you. And playing more games, I think, helps you figure out what you want from a game, and it can make you a better D&D player as well. You come back to D&D and you're like, I didn't realize this. I didn't figure out that I could have done this until I played Shadowrun, until I played Cypher, Call of Cthulhu, until I played this indie RPG where they made me roll this dice I've never rolled before and I didn't know what it did. So I would highly suggest people just spend a Saturday, grab a different game you've never played before, choose one nice and skinny, and just play a bit of it. Just try it out. If you are looking for specific genres in D&D, we are in a gluttonous market for that because everyone is producing 5e content. So if you're looking for space D&D, if you're looking for horror D&D, Wild West D&D, it's out there. You can find it. But while you're Googling that, have a Google, see what else is out there, see if anything else seems fun. Because I'm one of these horrible people. I play multiple systems in a week and I will steal things from other systems and bring them into whatever I'm playing if I think is going to add to the game. I love Call of Cthulhu for luck rolls, for example. I think luck is a great stat. I like the idea that you could spend a little to improve your roll, or you could roll it and maybe that fire extinguisher you really want, it's there. So I really like luck, for example, and just like little things like that that you can just add and it just builds to your experience because at the end of the day, an RPG book is a toolkit. It's there because people have sat down and were like, how do I facilitate this game? How do I give people the rules and the things to make what they want happen? And they've put it together for you in a package. But just take what you want from it to make what you want.
Steal all the things. I will tell people, here's a little secret. And I won't speak for Charlie, but I know plenty of people and myself will play games and even stream them online and not even know the rules because sometimes the books are this thick and you know what, who's got time for that, right? So we'll just jump in and figure it out. I mean, I ran a 13 episode game of Open Legend and I still am not sure if I know the rules or not, but you know what, the players had fun, the people watching it enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, we're playing games, right? So especially if you're just playing with your friends, taking on a new RPG, like you don't need to know all the rules at first. You'll figure it out, you'll mess things up, and someone will point out this is how that works. And
I've always treated it like a board game. Usually with a board game, I'll do like the flick through of the rule book the first time. And then I'll be like, all right, I just want to start playing. And then I can look up rules as we go, as we're playing through the first time. And then I figure out by the end of the game, I've played that entire game wrong, but I had a great time playing it and I got to play the game rather than sitting and reading for 6 hours, which is fine. If that's your jam, that's absolutely fine. Like no hate from me. In fact, kudos that you have that kind of dedication and focus. I do not. But generally, I'm one of these horrible people. I just want to play as soon as I can. So I'll just read a paragraph, be like, yeah, I get it. Roll the dice. Move the tokens. And it's the same for RPG. I get the idea of roleplay. Understanding the world, I find, is the biggest step. And when we run one shots of Kickstarters and stuff, I'm like, I need to understand what this world is so that we can represent that. The rules we can tweak, we can get them slightly wrong, we can add addendums of actually we reread the rules and you were meant to do this. But understanding the world for me is the core thing. And what that's designed to do, what is designed to be brought out of that.
Even when like I talk to companies and they're like doing Kickstarters for a game and they want people to see them playing the game, I'm like, my advice is whatever your game is, strip out anything that's going to be not fun for other people to watch, for a stream, which is fine for the game that you're playing. Like we did, Maximum RPG or Maximum Apocalypse RPG, and we had played it and it was a lot of fun. And then like I was like, well, you might want to think about like a streaming rule set versus a this is what people are playing rule set. And the designer was like, oh, that's a good idea. And he made some just very slight tweaks that were pretty seamless that keeps the game flowing. I'm like, you just want to show people having fun playing the game, not figuring out the rules and flipping through. And the same thing when you play it.
This is the other thing with Kickstarters, when you get those alpha or beta rule sets through, whether it's for stream or just for you, these are alpha or beta rule sets. They're probably broken in a million different ways that the designer probably already knows about, but they're trying to get the content out so people can start experiencing the game and get excited about it as well. So it's just, make the best of the tools you've given. If for you that's reading through all of them and using all of them, then that's cool. If it's just reading through and taking the bits that are interesting to you and what you're doing, then do that. And yeah, I definitely support people who, they've chosen their game and it gives them what they want. I support you. Just play that game. You're great at it. Clearly, you're getting what you want from it. And so are the people at the table, I would assume. Hope. But if you've got that feeling of, I like this, but I really wish I could play X, Y, or Z, go and see if you can play X, Y, or Z. And if you're looking for someone to play a game with, look online. There are hundreds and thousands of people out here, and hundreds and thousands of people probably actually looking for the same thing as you. We share a what, not a huge pool, and a lot of people are experiencing the same things. They probably want the same things right now. It's, the superhero fad was huge, is huge. People will therefore be looking for that kind of thing. So finding a Masks new generation game shouldn't be too difficult. And it also means people are writing these games right now.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of brought up in the chat a little bit ago, and we've been touching on it. But it's funny how many hoops people jump through to use that familiar game to play something else. By the end of it, like, they've done more work than it would. Like, they've basically rewritten a game and they don't realize it. And it's like, you could have really just read some rules. I mean, unless you're going to publish it, there's not a whole lot of benefit to that. Like, where you could.
I promise you, Hasbro are not going to come for you if you rewrite rules. Incidentally, like, I promise, they don't care what you do as long as you're giving them money. Don't care.
True that. So, of all the seasons you've done, do you have a favorite?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I feel like myself, I always try and put a lot of passion and interest into the games I play, because it's a lot of hours of my life. Even if I'm, paid to play on a game, like, that's still hours of my life and effort that I have to put in. I really enjoyed the Warhammer Fantasy campaign Beneath Dark Bowels, which was my first experience playing another game. I'm an awful player in it. I made a character who didn't have a voice, which isn't, by the way, important to roleplay, but for me, it's become a part of it. They didn't really have a voice. I didn't know anything about the world, didn't know any of the rules, so I tried to, yes, serious face, yes. Whatever they just said seems right, yes. But over the course of that experience, I got to know the world. I got to learn a new game, and I fell in love with that game, and I was throwing rocks at blood demons. I was calling out gods. I was losing limbs. I watched my best friend's dog die. Tragedy abound. It was great. It was grim. It was dark. Jim Davis was the GM. Just a fantastic time playing that game. And it's one that is just special to me because it was a transition game, I suppose, where I was going from just playing D&D and just kind of getting into roleplay to more performative roleplay of making a show on a stream roleplay. So it was kind of like a gateway drug, I guess. I love the Cthulhu Dark Ages by way of Blackadder game that we're playing on a Tuesday. My face is always sore from laughing at the end of that game because we're just having a great time. And the thing I like about it is there are kind of in-jokes, but it's in-jokes that we share with chat. So it's, there's a big group of best friends involved in this game, not just the 6 people playing the game, 7 people. A few people play that game. So I really love that. I look forward to that every week. And then on the Wednesday, the cult game that we're playing is a true adult horror game. It doesn't pull punches. This is, Haunting at Hill House, dark. It has real issues in it. And we use caution warnings and things so people can make educated choices in what they're walking into. But I do appreciate that this is an adult game that doesn't pull punches. It doesn't, hide things that we've agreed can be in the game. So that's really fun. And it's, it's deep body horror, grotesque stuff. And then you've got these cosmic divinity things going on, in addition to just weird personal horror. And my character has a substance abuse problem that we can explore a little bit. And so I really like that game because it does something that not a lot of the other games I play do. It goes to those real places, and it's a real horror show.
And what system are you using for that?
That's called Divinity Lost from Helmgast.
Okay.
This was a game I think originally released in the late 80s, early 90s. It's a Swedish game originally, but they've redone it, and it's now based on Powered by the Apocalypse, only it uses D10s instead of D6s, which gives it a slightly more fun curve to the role if you're looking at the mechanics of it. But essentially, you are these people who were once gods, probably terrible gods, and your divinity was stripped away from you, and you're now in this world that's a lot like ours, but there's a thin veil. And on the other side of this veil is your cosmic horror. It's strange happenings. It's a little bit Cthulhu-esque in that way. And over the course of the show, you become, or the game, sorry, you become more powerful. You learn more things about the illusion being the reality that we exist in. And I love the transition from being a very normal, everyday person with everyday person problems to having huge divinity lost type problems.
Does Encounter Roleplay, because we're talking about these adult themes, and I also, not that long ago, like a really well-known streamer had a huge flub kind of
Mm-hmm.
online. Does Encounter Roleplay use safety tools in their
Yes.
games?
Yes. Encounter has actually used safety tools for pretty much forever before it was like officially a
Mm.
known thing. We don't do a huge song and dance about it because it's not for other people, it's for the people in the game. It's a system of community and communication tools where you pre-agree this is how we are going to talk to each other if we have a problem. These are my problems. These are things I don't want to explore in a game. For example, I have a veil on suicide. I don't like exploring that as a topic in detail. And if I can just tell my GMs, I'd rather you don't bring this up because it makes me personally uncomfortable, then that means they know, right? I'm not putting them in a bad position. As a point blank on Encounter Roleplay, we don't include sexual assault, rape, sexual violence. It's something I have no interest in having in any of our games. And all of our GMs are told that point blank, it's not happening. It's also against Twitch terms of service. We're not doing it. It also makes problems on YouTube. So we're not doing it for that reason either. But just at my core, it's not something that we need to explore in a public space. If you want to do that in your private games, that's on you and your players. Do that with your, your private space. But so that's like my baseline. And then every season we set up with the groups what they're comfortable exploring, what they're interested in exploring is the other side that I think people don't look at and don't discuss as much, but that's part of it. And then if something goes wrong live on air, what do we do and how do we handle it? Because it could happen. You don't know. And as a player and as a GM, you don't necessarily know what's going to upset you until it happens in the moment. And having a way of saying, hey, let's stop that right now, and being free and open to do so is really important. And it is part of training and it is something that you have to get used to. But it's communication at the end of the day. And that's so vital because you don't want to be stuck on a camera in front of X, Y, and Z number of people doing something you're not happy doing, because you don't want those people to know you're unhappy necessarily because you've got all this pressure because everyone can see you. But at the same time, you really don't want to be in this scene dealing with whatever the scene is doing. So what do you do? And if you don't have that communication and those relationships established, you just have to sit on that camera looking uncomfortable. And then afterwards, it's gonna really have tainted the experience of that game and have a huge impact. And people in that audience know your face and will know you were not happy in that scene.
I want to say, even like in your private games, like this is all relatively new to me because I've been gaming for 20, 30 years. And, and I've experienced a lot of different things at the table, and where you felt like you're being held hostage to other people's like weird fetishes or something.
Yeah, I mean, when I said like if you want to do that in your private games, it's okay. I mean, yes and no. Like, still have the conversation. You should still have this conversation no matter what, because even if this is your best friend, they may have had something shitty happen to them today. Like the bus driver made a comment and it's upset them, and maybe they didn't want to bring it up before now. But the way of leaving that drama at the door is to say, I don't want people making sexual comments towards my characters today, okay? Just don't want it. And you don't have to have a main discussion about it. It just means it's not going to come up, for example.
But I think it's great that people are figuring this stuff out and coming up with tools for people to use at the table, and also to use them in a way that like we don't have to get into it. We just, everyone at the table now knows, we're done with this subject or whatever, and whatever the method people decide to use.
Yeah, the X card tap. If it's just a card on the physical table, because I know Magpie and a lot of other people do this on conventions now, they bring a little card with an X on. If a player taps that at any time, the scene ends. Things move on. Especially when you're playing with people you don't know, having that helps. You're still going to have a lot of anxiety about tapping it because you don't want to make a big scene. You don't want to be the awkward one. But I think having the option and it being brought out more is just really important. And it actually means that we can play darker games for Cult, because we know where the lines are for other people. We know what we can explore. And then at the end of the session, debrief. even if it's a private game, even if it's not streamed, whatever, debrief, have a conversation, chat about what you enjoyed, chat about, I didn't particularly enjoy that. You know, have that open conversation, and it's going to really set you up for your next game because you know what you've all enjoyed. And as a GM, say what you enjoyed, say what you want to explore, say what you didn't enjoy as well, because I think GMs can be held hostage by players getting really excited and really into seducing the NPCs, for example, or, you know, going off and murdering someone. And if that NPC is important to you as a GM for some reason, being able to say to your players, hey, actually, I really like this NPC. They're important to me for this reason. I would rather you didn't go and murder them this week. Can we talk about that? I think, you know, it's just going to make sure everyone's having fun. And that's at the heart, whether you're streaming it, whether it's private, in person, online, having fun is the whole reason we're doing this.
Yeah, that's important. Like, you know, I had someone, you know, bring up in a conversation about, you know, running online and, you know, running for a particular group being give something that was causing them stress or anxiety. I'm like, well, don't like don't do that to yourself. Like, this is a game, we should be doing it for fun. That's why we play games, is to have fun. So Brian Smith wants recommendations for an easy party RPG for a Halloween one shot over Zoom.
Honey Heist.
Yeah, Honey Heist is pretty simple.
The reason I would say Honey Heist is very simple to play. For one, it's a one-page RPG by Grant Howitt. If anyone's not familiar, you get 2 stats, bear and criminal, and I think you could do a really fun Halloween theme to it, which would be a new experience of this game for anyone who's played it before at your table already. So that's one I would suggest. If you want to go a little bit darker, you want to explore something a little bit more serious, Steal a Nacht by Petra. Excuse me. I will see if I can find the link to pass along to Dave so we can share that. It's a really great ghost story game. It's actually set at Christmas. And it's following up a massive flood in Germany, but not a result of this flood. Someone dies, someone is murdered, and they're a ghost. And every year on the same date, they reappear. And on this year, you've been brought together by a medium, and you're going to talk to this ghost and resolve their unresolved issues so they can pass on. And one of you is the murderer. And it's a huge it's a collaborative game where you're adding to the story of this ghost as you go. We just played it at EncounterCon, and we're going to play it this Halloween on Encounter Roleplay. It's a beautiful game, and it's 100% collaborative, and there are very few rules. You can literally make a character in about a minute. You assign a name, you assign a profession, you assign how they knew the victim. And then the GM has a number of different roles, which include bystander and murderer. And they don't know what you're going to be. They'll secretly hold it up so they can't see it, and you know who you are. And so as a game, you're discovering it all together. No one has all of the information, and each character has a secret, and one other person at the table knows that secret. They saw them doing something. So that's a really incredible game. It only takes about 2.5 hours to play through. So you could even get multiple playthroughs of this, have multiple ghosts, and, you know, play the game again. Really, really cool game. Highly recommend that for a little bit of a spooky feeling. And you can really go see how dark that goes is up to you as well, which is really fun. But I really enjoyed that when we played that. Another fun game for Halloween, which could be a really great kids game as well, as Kids on Brooms, which is based on the Kids on Bikes system. Very simple stat system. It's kind of inspired by, you know, Harry Potter and that whole wizarding school trend. But you can be teens, and it's kind of like Tales from the Loop meets Wizards. And I think that's a really fun Halloween theme. So you could run around, be magical children, having fun adventures. So lots of different things for lots of different styles. Chaosium also have the free quick start for Call of Cthulhu, which includes an adventure. So you can pick that up and it walks you through. And I would say 45 minutes of setup and you would be good to play a Call of Cthulhu game with that. So that would be a great Halloween quick game.
So now, Brian, I think you've got your next like 4 Halloweens figured out. Should be good. Thank you, Charlie.
No worries.
You're definitely better for that question than me. I unfortunately do not play as many games as I would like to. So for us, like one of the best things was we used to have one player that would like consume an RPG rulebook in a day or two, and then would show up for us and run a game. So we would always try and cycle out different games, but I wouldn't say they were rules light. Usually, unless we're playing maybe like a cipher system or something like that, and even that's not particularly rules light in the bigger scheme of things. So, do you have a go-to rules light game?
Go to rules like game. Generally, I find if there's a story I want to play and I don't know what system to use, I will try and use Cypher because of the 3 stat system, and I essentially just use 3 stats and roll the d20 and pass fail. So I essentially roll Cypher as an even more rules light system than it is, but I find it facilitates stories really well. For example, if you wanted to do an ancient Greece story and you didn't want to go through a huge statting effort, just using Cypher works really well for that. I also ran a vampires in the 80s, like Lost Boys inspired type game using Cypher, so that was fun. But I don't know. I definitely feel I'm one of these people that I play most games rules light. I generally throw out half the rules and just focus on playing and focus on I only roll when it's important and I only roll things that I understand. So I don't know. Is there like I don't think there is a particular one. I think my biggest question is not is it rules light? It's why do you want to play a rules light game and what do you want to play?
Yeah.
What do you want to play being the most important one? Tell me what you want to play and then I can find you a game.
We did like and I played a couple sessions of it, but we did a Fate Accelerated Star Wars like fighter pilot game. That
Fate,
was a lot of
great.
fun. Which, Fate Accelerated is stripped down Fate, so it's even easier. There's a lot of great games like that. I find like the older I get, the more rules light I tend to want to go.
Yeah.
You mentioned Cipher System. We're getting ready to start a Cipher System game. We're kind of doing like a Thundar the Barbarian meets Flash Gordon, like totally 80s cheese. Half my players had to like look those things up though. So
I think Pulp Adventure is having a massive comeback right now. My actual favorite rules light system is the Terra RPG system that we're developing. And it's not just because we're developing it, it's because we designed it to be the game that I wanted to play. So the center of the Terra system it's inspired by 10 Candles and Dread and games like that. We have, I think it's 4 or 5 dice pools and it's d6s. And over time, those d6s get taken away from you. But if you succeed on a roll, you get to add a truth to the world. And that truth is absolutely true. Whatever it is, you can make the world worse for yourself, you can make it better for yourself. And the GM adds to it. If you fail the roll, the GM gets to make a truth. You don't get to add to it. But you can pass the spotlight on to another player. And it's a really collaborative storytelling game. And it's designed to make horror stories and horror movie-esque games. So I really have been loving that, and it's so simple. The character process is very simple, and you make the world together. So there's not even GM prep for it. You show up, you have a series of questions that you build the world together through, and then you can start playing. So it's kind of everything that I want in a system. It's quick character creation, easy rules, and you build the world together. So there's none of that awkward, do I know this? That fear of, am I breaking your world if I suggest the Chavin's called the Flappy Fish? Am I wrong? There's none of that awkwardness, which is something I loathe in a game. I hate having to go to the gym. Does my character know this? Or can I make a knowledge roll to see if I know this? For me, it's just one of those nitty things I just don't like. I'd rather have the confidence to either say, it's called the Flappy Fish, of course it is. Or, add to the world. Or, there be a way of facilitating those moments that isn't so awkward.
So a dice pool doom with a doom clock built into it.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Dice pool with a doom clock. And there's a couple of different settings for it as well. That's cool. We've designed the campaign settings. And there's also a one-shot setting because the pacing for the 2 different things is going to be different. And you don't want your character dying at the end of every single session. Maybe you do. That's okay. You can play it that way.
Wait, when can we expect to see that?
It's still in development. I think we're hoping to get it out next year, but who knows? Maybe we'll get it out this year magically. We're kind of shopping around at the moment, figuring out what we want to do with publishing and kickstarting and things. Jonathan Fry, if you want the inside scoop, his Patreons, they get the inside scoop. I think they've got the beta rules at the moment over there, or the version 2 beta rules, in fact. But you can also check out the simple alpha rules for free on the World Anvil we made for the Haunting of Seawall Orphanage, because we alpha tested this game online. This game was born by me going to Don, I really want to play a game that's like American Horror Story Haunting at Hill House meets 10 Candles-ish. And so Don and I had a lot of conversations, and Don came up with this game, and we just alpha tested it, and every week you see us tweak it a little bit over the course of that game. And it's a full, I think, 11 episodes up on the YouTube if you want to see us play it as well.
Oh, nice. So is there one consolidated place people should go to find all of that stuff?
Yes. Well, there are a couple, but I'd highly recommend, first and foremost, joining our Encounter Roleplay Discord. The community is amazing, and we talk about all of these things all the time. So if you want to continue talking RPGs, come and hang out with us over on the Discord. I'm sure Nerdarchy also have a wonderful community where you can do that as well. The other place would be, if you want to watch the shows, either twitch.tv/Encounter Roleplay or youtube.com/Encounter Roleplay. We upload all of our VODs, so everything goes up there, and I try and keep it in nice, even playlists and lots of searchable terms so you can find any of the games you might be looking for.
And we have links to all that stuff in the description. Although what I don't think I have, and I'll add.
Would you like a Discord link?
If I add the link to the Encounter Roleplay website, will that kind of act like as a hub for everything?
Yeah, I think we have a current link for Discord there as well. Yeah, I think it's encounterroleplay.com.
Yep, I will add that so to make it easier for people to find all the things and be able to get there.
We're at all the places. If you search Encounter Roleplay, we'll probably show up.
I would say so. I mean,
only fans might be a little bit trickier to find us, but we're just about everywhere else.
My goodness. Well, you did have the D&D sex icon.
We did.
So there's that as well. Yeah, so I'll add that link into the description, and also, when this is done being live, it'll be in the pinned post for people to find it as well, to make it easier. And I highly recommend you do. So I'm just going to drop you the link for Steel Knocked in the Zoom chat, so you can grab that later if you wanted to add it to any of the descriptions. Oh, cool.
It's petrav.itch.io if people want to go and check out Petra's other creations. She's got an amazing horror camp inspired game, like a summer camp inspired horror game that's also good fun too. But that's where you find that ghost story game that I was describing.
Okay, cool. So when is so are your seasons staggered, or do they kind of all like kick off at around the same time?
So we start all of our shows kind of in the same week. Our next season is going to be starting October 19th. We're in the middle of a season right now, but if people want something to hop on and watch, this week we're actually starting off something called One Shot Wednesdays, and every week it's a new GM, a new cast, and a new game. So it's a great chance to check out a lot of different systems. This week, today, in fact, at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. if you're in the UK, other time zones available, we are playing Fiasco with the Transatlantic rule set. So kind of, I think, Titanic-inspired noir fun shenanigans are going to be happening this week. Next week, we have a Terra RPG one-shot. So if you want to see the system in action, GM'd by not myself or Jonathan Fry. We've got the wonderful Tatrick in the GM sheet chair. I was trying to say chair and seat, and it came out sheet. That's coming up in the same time on a Wednesday, so that's a really good chance to hop in. But honestly, hop into any of our games. You'll be welcome. You can always ask questions to be caught up on what's going on. We try and do a summary at the start as well. We only have 3 or 4 weeks left of this season. It's only an 8-week season. So I'm kind of sad. I'm loving all of our games at the moment. Some things will continue into the new season, and then I know we have a lot of new content coming up for October. There are some very exciting games on the roster that I'm not allowed to announce yet. I want to always tell everyone everything we're doing, but I'm not allowed to quite yet. But the confirmation will be coming up soon. And we actually do casting through our Discord. So if people want to try out streaming, or if they're experienced streamers and they want to join in an encounter roleplay game, that's the best way to sign up and get involved. We also do a monthly charity stream called the Monthly Meat Grinder. Different themes apply. Essentially, generally it's a 5e based all-in show. We have about 12-15 players and we kind of go through them, try and kill them off as quickly as we can for charity and raise money. This past weekend we had EncounterCon and we were raising money for Thrive DC, which is a charity that works with the homeless out in Washington DC, and we raised just under £450 for them, and that was a really fun meat grinder. Charity and, you know, giving back to the community is really important to me and really important to Encounter Roleplay, so it's really cool that we get those opportunities.
That's really awesome that you guys do that. And do you still do the 24-hour streams?
No.
No. You're like, no.
I like being alive. We don't. We just did EncounterCon though, where we did Saturday and Sunday. We had 3 shows each day. That was enough. That was, you know, 12 hours of gaming was enough for me each day. Luckily I had a very good co-tech in the form of Lydia, half-assed hermit, helping me out, and the community were incredible and all of the shows were great, and we're slowly uploading those. I don't think we're going to do another big kind of weekend for a little while, but maybe in December. Maybe I'll squeeze one in.
Yeah. I remember seeing Will do a few of those, and then like, you know, for the next day or so, he's like toast.
Yeah, you can see his soul slowly leaving his body.
Yeah, pretty much. That's awesome. Well, with that, I want to thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me today. It's been great chatting with you. And catching up, you know, like I've had Sydney and Will on a couple times in the past, so it's always good to get some new faces over here from Encounter Roleplayer, and it sounds like Encounter Roleplay is in great hands. I can't wait to see the things that you guys do. I want to see this game when it hits Kickstarter or whatever. With that, till next time, stay nerdy.